Running commentary. We are exploring listening to albums. It is a lost art form. We took an hour out of our day. We switched off the phones. We switched off the computers. We did not answer the door. We sat down and we listened to the artist's vision and concept. Joe Jackson, Night and Day. Night and Day was a request from one of our YouTube viewers, and we thank you for that request. We were happy to look over the Joe Jackson album and review that. It is Joe Jackson's fifth album and was recorded in January and February 1982 at Blue Rock Studio in Soho, New York. Released in June 1982, it was produced by Joe Jackson and David Kirschenbaum. The record label was A&M. It sold over 1 million copies and reached the top 5 in both the UK and the States. The album made number 2 in Holland. I like the sleeve, a midnight blue graphic art rendering of a Manhattan skyline in the top left and what looks like a Hirschfeld rendering of Joe Jackson at a grand piano. The first big shock for me is that Joe Jackson is English. I always thought he was American, and that's going to change how I received the work. He was born David Ian Jackson on the 11th of August 1954. He's a Leo. He was born in Burton-upon-Trent and grew up in the Paulsgrove area of Portsmouth. Music was his life. He started playing the violin, but switched to piano and managed to convince his dad to get one into their council house hallway. Joe picked up his name as a result of people thinking he looked like the puppet character Joe Piano. He played lots of live gigs starting aged 16 and won a scholarship to study musical composition at London's Royal Academy of Music. His first band formed in Gosport and started off being called Edward Bear, then Edwin Bear, and then Arms and Legs. This first band split up in 1976. Joe Jackson then started playing the cabaret circuit to put together the money for a demo. A producer heard that demo and got him signed to A&M, and it was here that the Joe Jackson Band were formed and came to be known as part of that big new wave explosion in 1979, together with contemporaries Elvis Costello and Graham Parker. There's tremendous musicianship on this album. The percussion in particular is notable in its identity on this work. Sue Hajopoulos is credited as playing conga, bongos, timbales, orchestra bells, xylophone, flute, and vocals. We have Graham Maybe on bass, Larry Tolfrey on drums, to mention but a few. So let's talk about why it's relevant whether this sort of music was made by an English or an American. Why does that matter? Well, Bill Lurch, one of our viewers, has said that, with Marshall, it's always obvious. He's always going to love all the English stuff. He's going to hate all the American stuff, and that's just going to be the way it is. Well, that's not strictly true. But it would have made a difference. There's something about the way Americans do certain things. Sometimes when they're sort of seeming to pay homage to a British style, it can sometimes seem so overblown and piss-takey. Like, they're really trying to be in earnest of it, but sometimes it comes over as a bit, like, forced, and it's really irritating. And especially when they add, like, layers of cool, and they think they're being really cool as they make a really bad job of the English accent. There's something about that really just rubs me up the wrong way. But, it's a quirk. I think it would annoy an American if someone did a bad job of, like, trying to do American rock, as a lot of British people do. I think that I think it goes both ways. I think it runs both ways. I don't think I'm unique in getting irritated by people trying to pull off a style that, especially when you were kind of there or on the outskirts of it and you know what it actually was, and then someone tries to do a sort of bodge job of what it was, and they're trying to show you, no, this is really punk. I'm like, no, it's really not. This is not what punk was at all. So Joe Jackson and this accent, I remember thinking, well, if he's American, it does change things. But then I found out, no, he's not American, but he did spend a lot of time in New York. And we'll go into, especially with the Night and Day album, why this, becomes more relevant, but I just wanted to throw that in there. The first track on Night and Day by Joe Jackson is Another World. It's busy instrumentally. I watched a TV interview with Joe Jackson and heard a radio interview. On the radio interview, he was asked to categorize his genre, and he said, I don't know, you've got ears, haven't you? One thing this song is not lacking is energy. It has an enthusiastic breathlessness to it. I stepped into, stop. I stepped into, stop. Into another, stop. Into another world. It's like rhythmic, you know. This song is a great way to start the album. Chinatown. I have to believe Chinatown happened to Joe Jackson. I believe he was in downtown Manhattan in the early 80s, fancied a decent nosh, and instead got exposed to the distinctly ungentrified vibe of the way New York City used to be. He tells a story here. I love the keyboards. As Europeans, we can get a little too inquisitive for our own good. And Joe here has captured that fear you have when you make a wrong turn in a foreign city. I'm impressed. TV Age. The xylophone here is awesome. It's instantly engaging. Who gives a shit about you? Who are you anyway? Says Joe amid a kiddie-sounding chorus with sax. Funky and offbeat. This guy's a good songwriter. Soon the TV will turn you off. Be warned. Target. Salsa, piano, and rhythm. Man, the band are switched on. This song makes me admire the perfection of the album cover. Uptown, downtown, no one's fussy. I'm a target. Joe Jackson was in New York, soaking it up, pulling it in through his pores, and regurgitating his experience in a pan-cultural epiphany. This work is vibrant and inspired. I haven't caught my breath yet. Steppin Out reached number 6 in the UK and America. This is one of my favourite songs of the 1980s. It warms my heart and it fills me with this infinite possibility of what a night in New York in this era could have been. The brittle cocktail piano, the effortless glamour of composition and cool. There will never be another Steppin Out. This album is Big Apple centric, and this song is the happy ending that Hollywood fantasies are made of. Why is it that I didn't check this album out sooner? I loved It's Different for Girls. I loved Stepping Out. This album is making me say, Marshall, what's wrong with you? I'm sure a lot of you have been asking that for years. There are 4 tracks to go, and 100% is flashing in my mind right now. Grammy nomination here, by the way, of course. Breaking Us in Two is another single. Okay, Joe Jackson fans, I've just said up until the end of Steppin' Out, 100%, right? This song as a follow-up to single to Steppin' Out fails in a few regards. It breaks the magic of Stepping Out. The piano's great, but the lyrics are tapped from a different artery. I don't want to hear this after Stepping Out. What's breaking us in two? Where's the man with the shopping cart full of cans? Where are the sweaty hands on the remote control? Joe has no observational skills on what breaks the relationship, having successfully delivered the very air from downtown Manhattan in the early 80s. His voice is there, but there's no answers. So, yeah, breaking us in two kind of drops the ball a little bit for my money. As a follow-up single, not the right way to go. Maybe different order. Not a good way to go. I think that they thought they were being clever and they sort of dropped the ball a little bit there. Cancer. Everything gives you cancer. Don't play that piano. Topical and tropical, the Tropic of Cancer perhaps, set to the Latin rhythm with my favorite piano sound from Stepping Out. Great solo in the middle on the piano, you hear the sax again. Clever songwriting, let's just not do anything because it's going to give you cancer. Joe Jackson in interviews describes the Night and Day album as like going back to work after the holiday-like spirit of the jump-in jive set which preceded it. This song's fine. We should also mention that Joe Jackson is a committed, or what, I don't know if he still is, but he was a committed smoker. and to the point where his love affair with New York abruptly ended when buildings started introducing the non-smoking rule, where he said, bugger this, I'm not paying these sky-high rents for you to tell me what I can and cannot do in my own home. So very, very interesting there in that song, Cancer, and that, I'm guessing that ties in with some of Joe's personal habits. Real Men is a number 6 record in Australia, of all places with this song. We are not going to be just breezing by this track. I will be buying this song. Kill all the blacks, kill all the reds, and if there's war between the sexes, there'll be no people left. Controversial lyric. Probably true. So this song is released between Stepping Out and Breaking Us in Two. It breaks in Australia. It's number 17 in Holland. If you haven't seen the video, go check it out. Joe Jackson's second album, I'm the Man, is the title. What am I getting at? Where am I going with this? I'll tell you right now, this is my second favorite song on the album. Joe Jackson, I told you I thought he was American because with Stepping Out, he gave you New York. I don't care if you agree with me, he did. The enigma factor with Real Men is immediately and obviously, to me, is Joe Jackson gay? Well, upon certain research, he certainly had a wife. He didn't recommend marriage to anyone particularly. I think they're divorced now, but that was the enigma. Is Joe Jackson gay? That didn't even strike me as a possibility. I want to know, where in his soul has he written this from? Does he know people who he's defending on this track? Taking up the champion of a cause as a straight man, post-punk? What an incredible hero. Why did this song not hit in America and England? I don't imagine this song was a pâté picnic with Beaujolais for gay men in Australia in 1982. Are the audience to be congratulated there for their avant-garde taste? I think so. This song is incredibly brave and magnificent. And, Joe Jackson, no matter which point of the compass you were traveling from, you're an incredible songwriter. My hat's off to whoever supported this delicacy. Exquisite song. Cole Porter is cited as being influential by critics. A slow song. The album ends with this. The lyrics are irritated with the expectation of a ballad, while the piano obliges the musical expectation. I get tired of DJs. Why is it always what he plays? Good question. The Hammond is nice on the middle 8. The irony of Cancer is continued here. What's interesting here on this track is that if you feel you've developed any kind of rapport with the artist, you almost feel as though you're betraying him by listening to this song. Joe Jackson is a true artist. He rouses my spirit and he delightfully echoes many of my sentiments as a human being. He said that he stopped doing videos because they became the tail that wagged the dog. He said he would rather sell records to 10 people who loved it than be a sellout. Not ever has someone felt so much like a neighbor and a friend as Joe Jackson. To the YouTube viewer who recommended this album, I salute you. I can't give it 100% because of Breaking Us in Two, but I will give it a huge, for me, 94%.